Last time we discussed how by seeing the mind-body we automatically see the suffering nature and what is impermanent and unsatisfactory cannot be self. There's no atta, only anatta. Non-self, impersonal, selfless. In this way, seeing one genuine lakkhana, one sees other lakkhanas as well. By seeing anicca, one sees dukkha and one understands anatta. Just like we have three divisions about anicca, three divisions of anicca in respect of the sankhara, mind-body, conditioned psychophysical phenomena, such as anicca, anicca lakkhana, and anicca vipassana. Today we shall discuss about the three divisions of dukkha as dukkha lakkhana, and dukkha vipassana. This is not difficult, it is quite easy if given with together with the practice. This discourse was not given in the beginning because before they are well established in the practice, it may be confusing to the yogis and it may cause hindrance in their practice. Now is the time to explain this from both theoretical and practical aspects. Just as Buddha gave the first sermon, Dhammacakka, to the group of 5 monks until they became Sotapanna, realized the first path. Only then the Buddha preached anicca, dukkha, anatta with questions and answers. So this is how Sayadaw also had an idea to give a discourse in this fashion. After yogis are well established in the practice, if explained in this way at this stage, they will understand better. So last week we dealt with the anicca lakkhana and anicca vipassana. Today we shall discuss dukkha lakkhana and dukkha vipassana. This dukkha is not the kind of dukkha that we suffer physically, mentally, known as kayika dukkha, cetasika dukkha, which we experience physically and mentally, like excruciating pain and things like that. This is the kind of dukkha which happens which is inherent in the mind-body conditioned psychophysical phenomena, which are not free from the nature of arising and passing. So this becomes manifested in one's mind, in one's knowledge or thought, that it has the unacceptable nature, dangerous, disgusting, detestable nature, miserable nature. Hence it is known as dukkha. When you say when one sees anicca, one sees also dukkha. This is just the kiccha, as function. In actual fact, in the beginning of the practice, one sees the discernment of the mind-body and the conditionality and the universal characteristics of phenomenal existence, such as anicca, dukkha, anatta. This is the beginning of insight, vipassana jnana. Not yet seeing the sankhara dukkhas, the unsatisfactoriness of formations or conditioned phenomena. It's only at the higher insight knowledge stages, being tormented, tortured continuously by the arising and passing away nature of objects, one sees as unacceptable, disgusting, miserable, dangerous, and become disillusioned with these conditioned phenomena, such as sankhara dukkha. One may see at higher stages this sankhara dukkha in a very serious manner. Now, even at this stage, one will not even wish to note the pleasant sensations which arise in the body. One will not even wish these things to arise. Or even if they arise, one will not wish to note. Because one is tormented by this impermanent conditioned psychophysical phenomena, sankharas. Not seeing the pleasure, not seeing the satisfactory nature, one will not wish to accept them. One will not wish to have them. Accept them, feeling miserable and dangerous, thinking that they are dangerous at the higher inside knowledge. Fear arises, not the kind of fear which is a negative emotion, unskillful mental state, but this is a kind of fear which arises being accompanied with knowledge. This becomes very obvious at this stage. In the earlier insight stages, such phenomena has not been so obvious. However, we have to discuss this dukkha, three categories of dukkha. What is dukkha, what is dukkha lakkhana, and what is dukkha nupassana, one by one. In the past few days, we talk about this, the mind-body, which has a nature, is dukkha. Thus, these sankharas, the conditioned psychophysical phenomena, which are impermanent themselves, are dukkha. In this way we explained. Why dukkha? Why do we call this as dukkha? Because everything is in a state of flux, all giving place to a new. Things are arising and passing away continuously. In this way, this is happening continuously. One is being tormented or tortured by this phenomena. So this is the nature of unsatisfactoriness, and such is dukkha. In essence, the nature of being tormented continuously by the arising and passing away of conditioned things is dukkha, or we call dukkha Dhamma. You can put Dhamma or nature after dukkha. So this is dukkha Dhamma or dukkha nature. And then as for dukkha lakkhana, this is a characteristic or manner of being tortured or tormented, because the old is giving place to the new. This is the manner or the characteristic of the new things coming up all the time as the old is going away or disappearing. So knowing this is knowing the manner of dukkha or dukkha lakkhana, the characteristic of unsatisfactoriness. This is separate from or different from just mere dukkha. So these two things are different, separate, dukkha and dukkha lakkhana. Now as for dukkha nupassana, the contemplation, repeated mindfulness of the dukkha nature and dukkha lakkhana is in itself dukkha nupassana, contemplation of unsatisfactoriness. This is only at the moment, this phenomena occurs at the moment of practice, while you are noting, seeing the arising and passing away, being tormented, tortured continuously by the arising and passing away of this conditioned psychophysical phenomena, sankhara, mind-body sankhara, nama-rupa sankharas, so that one is satisfied that, oh, this is unsatisfactory, unacceptable, this is miserable, and this is dangerous, despicable, disgusting. So seeing this, contemplating this, is dukkha nupassana. Suppose a woman bears a child, a baby, when it is brought up, it is difficult to tame, doesn't obey the parents' over the parents and giving trouble to the parents or to the mother especially. So the mother thinks like this: instead of bearing such a child or baby, it's better not bear any baby at all, so that there won't be any suffering, any pain, any dukkha about such a baby, such a child. So nurturing the baby, and then bringing it up, and after all, he doesn't listen, disobedient, difficult to tame, delinquent. So the parents have to suffer a lot, endless suffering. So instead of that, it is better that she doesn't bear any baby at all. So also with the psychophysical, mind-body, conditioned psychophysical phenomena, mind-body things, they arise and pass away, they are unsatisfactory, they are dangerous, they are miserable. So they are tormenting, torturing all the time, continuously, so that because they are not satisfactory, one finds that they are not satisfactory, so that one thinks that better that these things don't happen at all. One does not possess any mind body at all from the beginning. Because this is the nature of this dukkha. So when these arising and passing away cease to exist, there will be total peace. Hence in the text is given pavadhan dukkha. That is flow of mind-body sankharas is sankhara dukkha. Flowing like a current. This psychophysical phenomena, they are conditioned things, these conditional phenomena are proceeding continuously without end, and they are torturing. Hence they are sankhara dukkhas. And then the corollary to this is abhavadhan nibbana. Not having a flow like this, or not having a flow of this current of mind-body sankharas is nibbana, peaceful. So when this mind-body, the flow of mind-body stops, there will be the cessation of these conditioned psychophysical phenomena. This is peaceful. Just like not bearing a child which is difficult to tame and causing suffering should not have been born in the beginning. So also with the mind body, one has to think in this context. Then yogi can find out by themselves with their own experience, then they will understand better. Let us say when one is hearing the sound is impinging the door repeatedly. And these two things are happening, the sound itself and the hearing consciousness. So that one becomes wearied with hearing, not wishing to accept, detesting it, and fearing this, being afraid of hearing. One cannot avoid at the same time, but they are still hearing, the sound is coming, and one is hearing, so long as there is an ear. So that one is being tormented by the arising and passing away of these two things, the sound, which is the rupa dhamma, the unsatisfactory materiality, and then the hearing consciousness, nama dhamma, the unsatisfactory mentality. So they are arising and passing away, and they are tormenting, they are torturing. One is being tortured by this mind-body, arising and passing away of mind-body. Here the sound, and the sound is a material thing, and then the hearing consciousness. And also there's a contact in the ear between the consciousness and the sound, and then the feeling, good or bad or neutral. These things are unsatisfactory, nature of unsatisfactoriness. This is dukkha dhamma. And then the characteristic or manner of rising and passing, a manner of being tortured by this arising and passing away of both the sound and the hearing consciousness. And then other the contact and feeling. They are not permanent. They are not permanent. They are transitory. They are in a state of flux, old giving place to the new. Although the old goes away, the new doesn't. One doesn't wish the new one to come, but still they come. So, in this way, this is the manner, the characteristic of the unsatisfactoriness, that is dukkha lakkhana. And while being mindful of this hearing, as noting hearing as hearing, one observes the arising and passing away, torturing oneself, and one becomes satisfied that this is this unsatisfactory, this is detestable and miserable, fearful, and knowing this, cultivating this kind of knowledge is dukkha nupassana jnana. So at the moment of hearing, what is obvious is this mind-body formations, conditions, psychophysical phenomena in three parts or three elements, namely the striker element, which is a sound wave striking the eardrum. And then we have the base element, that is the ear itself, which is impinged by the sound itself, giving rise to this hearing, consciousness, contact, and a feeling, good, bad, or neutral. This is ignition element. So, when one notes them, one notes as a moment of hearing, one feels that one is tortured by this arising and passing away of conditioned psychophysical phenomena. That they come up and disappear. They appear and disappear. One hears it. No sooner has one heard, then the sound disappears. Although one does not wish to hear, one is hearing, so long as the conditions are fulfilled. So long as the causes are fulfilled, one cannot avoid hearing it. One cannot help hearing it. So long as the sound is there, and the ear, sensitive part of the ear, and then the open space, that is, there's no hindrance in between, such as no wall or something like that to prevent one from hearing from the sound. So long as the space is open, there's a space, and then normal attention, advertence, mental advertence. So long as these four conditions are fulfilled, even one does not wish to hear, one will hear. So this is, in this way, these conditioned mind-body are happening on their own, at their will, so long as the conditions are there. You cannot prevent them, or you cannot cause them either, if conditions are not fulfilled. Even if you don't want to hear, you will hear, so long as the conditions are there. And even if you want to hear, if the conditions are not fulfilled, you will not hear. So only when there are these four conditions, you will hear the sound. And this is arising and passing away, this is undesirable, fearful. You come to see the characteristic of that unsatisfactoriness. So this nature, the selfless nature of the mind-body, conditioned psychophysical phenomena, which are inherently anicca and dukkha, they happen at their will, not at your will. They happen, they are ungovernable, uncontrollable. So they cannot be controlled so long as the conditions are there. Because they arise at their will and not at your will, there's no atta in them, no self or soul in them, and they arise at their will, uncontrollable. You become convinced of this nature. Seeing the unsatisfactory nature, seeing the impermanent nature of these conditioned psychophysical phenomena, arising at their will. You see them as they are continuously happening. You see them as undesirable because they happen at their will, at their own. So this is anatta, the nature of selfless, the selfless nature, or the nature of substanceless nature, or non-substantial nature. Because they arise on their own, there is no atta in them, nor they themselves are atta, or self or soul. In this way one sees the selfless nature of this conditioned mind-body. And one also sees the characteristic, manner of this selfless nature, that is anatta lakkhana. Because they are arising at their own, not at your will, they're selfless, so you come to see the manner or the characteristic of selflessness. Just like the weather conditions. Now the weather conditions are happening at their will, or at its will. Sometimes it's cold, sometimes hot, sometimes dry, wet, and so on. Nobody is doing it, nobody is causing it. No superior power is behind it. It is arising, it is happening on its own. Although you want to be cold, it is hot. Although you want to be hot, it is cold, and so on. The weather does not happen at your will. So when the weather, just like we say, everybody complains about it and nobody does anything about it, that sort of thing. So when the weather happens at its will, sometimes hot, you've got to adjust yourself to cool yourself down. And in this way, since the weather is uncontrollable, you only have to adjust your conditions. The weather will not adjust to your condition, to your will. So in the body are these mind bodies, psychophysical phenomena, conditioned psychophysical phenomena, which are impermanent, which are unsatisfactory, and they are happening at their will. This is anatta. And seeing the manner and the characteristic of this, the characteristic of this selfless nature is anatta lakkhana. And being mindful of this and convinced about the selfless nature of these things is the knowledge of the nature, or knowledge of the contemplation of selflessness, anatta vipassana jnana. And in this way one will be able to differentiate these things. This will become more obvious at higher insight stages. When one sees the fleeting way of objects at the stage of dissolution, seeing the dissolution of objects, one will see them as fearful and as miserable. When one sees another objects arising and passing away, all in a state of flux, the old giving place to a new, and seeing that they are undesirable, unacceptable, detestable, fearful. And they are not they're selfless, they arise at their will, not at your will. You cannot do anything about it. So seeing these universal characteristics of phenomenal existence, seeing the miserable nature of objects, is known as adinava nupassana jnana, knowledge of the contemplation of misery. That these conditioned psychophysical phenomena, which are subject to these universal characteristics, are unacceptable, fearful, and miserable. So, if one is not mindful, one will not see these things. Then one will not discern mind and body, not the condition, neither the conditionality, nor the arising and passing away nature, nor the unsatisfactory nature, nor the selfless nature. So that not seeing the impermanent nature, one will cling to the view of permanence. Not seeing the unsatisfactory nature, one will cling to the view of satisfactoriness. And not seeing the nature of selfless nature, one will cling to the view of self-nature, view of self or soul. So this kind of contemplation or knowledge or view is known as asada-nupassana. Knowledge, contemplation of pleasure, that things are pleasurable. So this is the difference between the ordinary person and Vipassana practitioner. In an ordinary person who is not practicing Vipassana, he or she will see the permanent nature. At times, he or she see that things are permanent, that all these mind-body arising in the body are permanent. And at times they are satisfactory, at times one will see them as self or soul, that they can arise at your will, they are governable, they are controllable. So one of these things, or all of them, can enter one's stream of consciousness. So this is asada-nupassana, contemplation of pleasure. And as for the Vipassana yogi, he is mindful of every arising. So instead of seeing the permanent nature, he or she sees the impermanent nature. The arising and passing away, the coming and going, the appearing and disappearing of mind-body objects. And instead of seeing the satisfactory nature, he or she sees the unsatisfactory nature, that these mind-body, arising and passing away mind-body, are torturing all the time, continuously, without break. They are unacceptable, they are detestable, they are miserable. And then they are not self, they are selfless, they are soulless, they are impersonal, they arise at their will, they are uncontrollable. Such kind of contemplation is known as adinava-nupassana, contemplation of misery. So this is the difference between the Vipassana yogi and ordinary person who is not practicing Vipassana. It's just like two persons running back to back. So when two persons are running back to back, then they will be moving farther and farther away from each other. Seeing these three things, the three flaws, the characteristic of phenomenal existence, anicca, dukkha, anatta, of these psychophysical phenomena, the conditioned psychophysical phenomena. This is cultivating Vipassana jnana, insight knowledge. Here we means the universal characteristics, that is the nature of impermanence, the nature of unsatisfactoriness, that they are selfless, they are unacceptable, detestable, miserable, and then they are not self or soul, they are impersonal, uncontrollable. This is the variety of characteristics. We means variety of characteristics, or a wide range of characteristics in terms of anicca, dukkha, anatta. The characteristic of rising and passing away, the characteristic of unsatisfactoriness, the characteristic of selflessness. These three things are given as vi. Pasana, seeing, jnana, knowledge of the seeing, knowledge of seeing the variety of characteristics. That is Vipassana. So in this case, cultivating insight knowledge in terms of adinava-nupassana, contemplation of unsatisfactory, contemplation of misery. It happens in one person, but just one person has two different views, depending on whether he or she is mindful or not mindful. That makes a difference. For instance, when one has a dress which one fancies, And before one sees the flaws, such as the holes, the 3 holes in this case, because one does not see the holes, the flaws in the dress which one sees, one enjoys it, one likes it, one is attached to it, thinking that it is good. However, at one time, whether one sees purposely or casually, one comes to notice the 3 holes in this dress which one fancies, then one's attitude will not be the same. One's attitude will change. Before one has enjoyed it, now one does not enjoy anymore. One will become slightly detached to this dress. When one sees before one saw the flaws, one thought it was pleasurable, it was good. But now when one sees the flaws, one cannot see it as pleasurable or enjoyable or as good. So this is 2 kinds of views held by just one person, depending on where one sees the flaws or one does not see the flaws. So in this way, if one can reflect, one can think in terms of one's own experience, one will be able to understand this nature. Especially those who fancy the dress. Seeing the flaws, they will not enjoy this dress anymore. So this is Adinavanupassana, contemplation of misery. Once one sees, before one becomes attached to it, and one will even think of buying better one than this and so on. There will be a lot of clinging and attachment. It's sure to happen. Now, seeing the flaws of this mind-body, one will not wish this mind-body to happen again. There will be no more attachment. And if there's no more attachment, there will be no clinging in terms of sensuous clinging and view clinging. Clinging of sensuality in terms of sense, or clinging by views. That is, I am, I like it. The one who likes it is I, and so on. This is clinging with respect to views. So in this way, with the absence of tanha, there will be no upadana, sensuous clinging, view clinging, because one sees the truth. So this is the nature of this contemplation of misery. There are 2 viewers, 2 persons who hold different views about this mind-body, nama-rupa. The 2 views to the contemplation of asaranupasi, contemplation of pleasure, and adinavanupasi, contemplation of misery. So in this way there are 2 kinds of views and 2 kinds of viewers. There's a difference. They give rise to different consequences, different results. If one sees things as pleasurable, pleasant, if one contemplates things as pleasurable and pleasant, then because one thinks everything is good, satisfactory, then one will crave for these objects. And when one encounters bad situations, one will also crave again. Crave for better one, crave for better situation. And in this way, this tanha will develop. Tanha bhava, craving or attachment will grow. Not seeing the flaws of mind-body as in terms of these characteristics of impermanent and so on, thinking that they are permanent instead of being impermanent, thinking that they are satisfactory instead of being unsatisfactory, thinking that they are self instead of being selfless, one will wish to enjoy these things, wish to see or hear, possess these pleasurable things, crave for objects and crave for better objects. And they will strive to acquire these objects, pleasurable objects. So from ordinary attachment, weak form of attachment, one will grow into very strong form of attachment. As I said, Tanapechaya Upadana, with attachment or craving as a condition, there arises Upadana, clinging. This is a very, very powerful form of attachment, Palava Tana. And then, things do not stop there. One again comes to this view of distorted view of self, view of that this I who sees or hears, who is enjoying, and the one who is enjoying is I. In this way, one also will cling in terms of this distorted view. And this is also another kind of clinging, upadana, view clinging. So when there is the craving, this craving will give rise to grasping or clinging, upadana. And also upadana pachaya bhavo, with clinging or grasping as a condition, there will arise this bhava. That means action, performing. In order to acquire these objects, one will perform by thought, word and deed to acquire these objects. And with wrong attitude, one will be led to unskillful deeds, unskillful results. So from this bhava vichya jadi, with bhava as condition, there arises a jadi, rebirth. And then from rebirth to existential suffering, from initial consequence to continuing consequence. That is physical suffering, mental suffering, aging, sickness and death. All these sufferings, all the consequences are bound to follow. So once we get bhava, one is bound to encounter suffering. That is, for those who sees the pleasure in objects, asadanupasi. And the one who sees things as pleasurable is known as asadanupasi. So in this way, this one is bound to gain this initial consequence and continuing consequence, unskillful, unwholesome, undesirable consequences. Now as for this, the other view, that is adinavanupassana, adivanupasi, the one who sees as misery, because one sees the true nature of things, that is the nature of impermanence and so on, that things are detestable, unacceptable, miserable, and not acceptable. One will not wish to possess them, seeing the flaws. So in this way, tanha nirodha, upadana nirodha. Tanha nirodha, upadana nirodha. With tanha, with the cessation of tanha. Before with tanha as condition, now with the cessation of tanha, the upadana, the clinging or grasping, will cease to exist. And with the cessation of upadana, bhava, actions will also cease to be performed. So with the cessation of bhava, there will be no jati, no rebirth. Rebirth will not come, and then other things will not follow, such as existential suffering, such as aging, sickness and death, mental suffering, physical suffering, and so on. They all will cease to exist. This is for the one who sees misery, adinavanupasi. So not seeing that they are pleasurable, seeing the flaws, one is free from craving, tanha. If one is free from tanha, one will also be free from grasping or clinging, upadana, and one will be free from the following consequences. That is, there will be no action performed to acquire these objects, and no rebirth, and so on. So that is the difference between these two persons. That's why, as I said, that they are running back to back, so that they are farther and farther removed from each other. This will be amplified in three groups. For those who contemplate pleasure in objects, asaranupasi, they are bound to possess, or they are bound to crave for pleasurable objects, tanha, leading to upadana, because of not seeing the truth. This is the round of kilesas, as we have discussed in the 3 rounds, avijja, tanha, upadana. Not knowing the mind and body and their conditionality, the universal characteristics, one sees them as reverse, as an opposite way, so that one gets caught up in this kilesa vata, round of defilements, with tanha leading to upadana in two kinds: senses clinging, view clinging. Clinging in terms of sensuality, clinging in terms of views. So this, based on this kilesa, defilements, negative emotions, one performs deeds, good and bad, this is kama vata. If one performs good and bad deeds, one is bound to get these consequences, good and bad consequences, jati, rebirth. The initial consequence in terms of rebirth, and the continuing consequence in terms of jara, marana, and so on, aging, sickness, and death, physical suffering, mental suffering, and so on. So, because of upadana, there is the bhava. That is what it is. In this way, the one who sees pleasure in things and objects, asaranupasi, not ordinary, not yogis, not the way yogis see. For such a person, he or she will be caught in the round, in the triple round, namely the kilesa vata leading to kama vata and vibhaka vata, the triple round. Now, as for the other person, yogi, who sees misery in objects, adinavadupasi, since he or she sees the truth, he or she sees the nature of these objects, that is the mind, body, their cause effect, and their characteristics. Seeing the truth, because one sees the truth, one does not crave or cling, so that this kilesa vata, the round of kilesa vata, the round of defilement, will be cut off or cease to exist. When this round of defilement ceases to exist, as is said, bhavavichya jadi, since there's no action, because there's no defilement, no action performed, neither ordinary wholesome deeds which will lead to rebirth, nor unwholesome deeds. Ordinary wholesome deeds which will give rise to rebirth, that also will not be performed, nor the unwholesome deeds. In this way, there will be no kama vata, round of actions. The round of action also will cease to exist, will be cut off. So, if the round of action is cut off, there will be no round of results, vibhaka vata. Only when, because there's no kama vata, no actions, there will be no jati, no rebirth, no initial consequence, nor the ensuing or continuing consequences. So that there will be no round of results. So that's the difference between these two persons. So one can also understand this better with the example of the cycle of tree. And this is, what is important is adinavadupasi. This is contemplation of misery, while noting whatever arises in the body, seeing this nature of mind, body, conditionality, and the characteristics. One is gaining insight knowledge, so that is because of the knowledge, vijja, instead of avijja, the tanha upadana will cease to exist. Hence, the kilesa vata, the round of defilement, will cease to exist. There will be no set. The kilesa set will be dried up. When kilesa set dries up, you don't have to do other things, you don't have to cut off other things purposely. They will also dry up automatically. So this, in this way, this avijja, not knowing the truth, knowing in a wrong way, which is the important factor in this kilesa vata, round of defilement. This is like a head of samsaric vata, suffering. In a person, if one loses one's head, I mean literally losing, then you don't have to do anything else if you want to remove him from this world. So with this avijja, which is like a head of samsaric suffering, not knowing the truth of mind-body, and this way this mind-body which arises and passes away will arise one after another, one life after another. It will go on torturing, tormenting one who possesses this mind-body. So, in this way leading to upadana, clinging. So, seeing the flaws of samsara, especially the samsaric, the head of samsaric suffering, seeing the flaws of it, one seeing the cause-effect, paticca-samuppada, in terms of paticca-samuppada, and seeing the universal characteristics and progressive stages of insight, seeing the truth. If one sees the truth, then one will not see, there will be no wrong sight, wrong views. There will be no more wrong views if one sees the truth. Just like a person who has cataract, that person will not either see at all or see in a wrong way. So also, a person who doesn't see the truth will either not see the truth or will see in a wrong way. So, if one sees the truth, then there will be no avijja, no ignorance. Ignorance will be automatically cut off. In place of avijja, there will be vijja, knowledge. Knowledge takes the place of ignorance, just like beheading. So there will be no tanha upadana. So the practice is to be aware of these universal, of the characteristics of mind-body at the moment of arising, if you are mindful at the moment of the arising, so that you know these things. Vijja instead of avijja, the practice is you are exerting to cultivate knowledge. Then, once knows, then there will be no unknowing, no ignorance. The head will be automatically cut off, and there will be no wrong direction, troublesome child, troublesome baby. So also, it is better that if this mind-body is bound to cause suffering, it's better that we don't have this mind-body in the beginning. Then there will be a lot of peace and happiness. So this is like, this doing away, renouncing, or doing away, foregoing this mind and body with a suitable manner, like going to relieve the nature's needs. Then once you have relieved the nature's needs, you feel very good, better, comfortable. So also, when you are relieved of this mind-body which causes suffering, you will be very much relieved. This will be discussed tomorrow. Tomorrow. Tomorrow.